Hey, Lee Martin here with another episode of I'm in the Shop. Today, we're working on a YetiSnowMX 129 Freeride, and we're talking again about the jack shafts. So this video is going to teach you how to pull the jack shaft out, put it back in, and align it. So stay tuned.
Who put that there?
Okay, let's get this started. A couple things I want to talk about before we get going so you know what you're getting into. We're going to try to use as much basic tools as possible in this video. So we're going to try to stay away from impact guns for bolts that are kind of being stubborn, and especially with Loctite, and using different techniques to help loosen stuff like that up. We're also going to have some specialty tools from YetiSnowMX, all available for purchase, but a couple of them are the shaft pullers that they sell, and also the big alignment tool for realigning your jack shaft. So that'll be something that happens as well. I don't have my cameraman here today. He's on vacation, so it's just me, doing my thing in the shop with the phone again, going old school. So yeah, let's get going. All right, step one, we're gonna pull off our synchro drive cover. It's a great time to inspect this, guys. Make sure that you're not missing any of the parts off the pins and no major cracks. Everything looks good. Before we get into removing these bolts, there's a couple different things we can do. This bolt most likely has a bunch of Loctite, blue Loctite inside, holding it in place. They do call for that on the manuals and the parts diagrams, that you should put Loctite in there. So yeah, we're going to try to get it out first without having to put on any specialty tools. So a couple things you can kind of do if this is on the bike and someone can hold the brake, that might help a little bit with keeping the shaft from rotating. If that doesn't work, then we're going to try a little bit of heat. So the last thing I want to do is touch this bolt or this sprocket with any type of with a torch. It's just gonna make it look terrible. So a heat gun. I got my standard old trustworthy Super Stripper 1200 right here. Likely what's to happen if I try to turn on this right now. Okay, so grab your 17. If I try to loosen this, yeah, it's just gonna drive the track forward. So again, maybe holding the brake will do the trick. Obviously, an impact gun would make a great solution to this. I'll take it right off. But if I'm going to try to show you how to take this off without using impact. So without doing any damage, we're going to need to use a set of these Clutch Basket Motion Pro vice grips. What you can do is you can, once you take the belt off, you can put the vice grips into the slots in that gear set, and you can kind of hold it in place as you're trying to loosen it off. Now, step two, we got to loosen our tensioner and then take our belt off. Loosen the nut on the wheel. And then with our 12 mil wrench, loosen off our lock nut. Okay, I just had a crappy wrench there, guys. Okay. And then back this off, loosen it up. Yeah. Okay, and now we can slip our belt off. It's a great time to inspect the belt. So, just kind of having a look over it, making sure there's no cracks. And then the inside, no abnormal wear on the ribs, all that stuff. Yeah, so we're looking good. That's good. Okay, now this is, besides whatever the chain is keeping on tension, this will pretty much freewheel. So with that sitting like so, we're going to put on these clamps. So the great thing about this clutch basket clamps is they do fit in well. You don't want to over tighten them. You just want to hold it in place. So you're not trying to wrench on them too tight because, I mean, this is, I believe, aluminum, or if it's not aluminum, yeah, I think it's aluminum. You don't want to damage the gear. Okay, and then hopefully with a little bit of manpower and grunt, we can try to get this to go. And we did it. Success. So fortunately, we didn't need any heat. Now, if that didn't go, my next step would have been to take the heat gun and work my way around it and warm that up. What I'm doing is I'm not trying to expand anything or contract. When Loctite gets warm, it almost goes back to kind of a softer liquid state. And unless, of course, you're using that weird high temp stuff. But again, none of that's being used in anything YetiSnowMX that I'm aware of. It's blue Loctite, like your standard blue Loctite. Okay, guys? No red anywhere, none of that crap. It's too aggressive. And then once you heat it up, like so, and what that will do is it'll help liquefy it, kind of, and allow it to soften up so you can back it out. So there we go. Without an impact gun or any type of aggressive, expensive tools, you know, I think this Motion Pro thing's probably like 30 bucks, maybe 40 bucks online. Back it out. So you can definitely see that there was plenty of blue Loctite on there. So, yeah. Anyhow, so you're going to want to clean up that old blue Loctite. Get it off there, clean the threads with a low wire brush. Again, if you have you got one of these puppies, a wire wheel, that can go a long way. Okay, and like so. Don't forget, you've got a washer in there, guys. Okay, that sits behind your gear. So make sure you remember to put that back in. Have a quick inspection, make sure it's not warped or bent or cracked. And this is looking pretty nice. Focus. Yeah, it's looking good. When you know it's not looking good, the teeth start to spur a little bit, and on some of these painted, it's not painted. I can't remember the process, but you'll see it starting to wear down. Like you'll start seeing the aluminum coming back through. Yeah. So, but it looks great. It looks perfect. So this can be used again. I found an old sprocket here. I want to kind of show you guys what a worn out, not fully worn out, but like signs of it breaking down or having issues. I hope this camera can pick it up. You see all the divots and the scrape marks and everything on this thing? So either something got in there when I broke a deflector case, or, you know, back in the day when they used to make them not as durable as they do now, or when I used to smash and bash through rocks when I probably shouldn't have. I got something in there between the belt and the pulley, and that caused a little bit of damage. So, you know, would I use this again? I would, if I were to clean it off and make sure that there was no rough edges to cut the belt or do any damage to the belt. The belts are expensive and they're proprietary, but that's definitely not how it's supposed to look. It should be smooth and perfect, like the black one I showed you earlier on. No. So the next step here, guys, is we're going to use this special Yeti puller, put it on here, and that's going to help separate the, I guess it's called the drive plate, I think, from the body. Before we do that, we got to take all the drive plate screws out. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. So let's get them out. And chances are they're Loctite in as well. So you might have to heat them up. I like to try to loosen everything with a ratchet before I get my power tools in there. The power tools are nice. They make things go fast, but they can also strip pretty easily and cause damage if you're not careful. And just to get out of my way, I'm just going to remove my tensioner wheel here. Again, if you're taking your tensioner wheel off here, guys, you know, it's always good to, there is a bearing that sits in there, you know, just kind of wheel it and it feels really nice. It's like a little skateboard wheel. Okay. All right. So now we're ready to pull the plate off of the actual jack shaft itself. So when you're looking at it, what we're doing is the bearing and everything is all, the bearing is pressed onto the end of this shaft here that goes to the outside, and it needs a lot of force to get it off. So you just can't loosen this and expect to yank it off, like loosen the drive plate and expect to get it off the shaft. Okay, so this is what the puller looks like. And they do show this on the YetiSnowMX video page I was talking about earlier on, the older one. And they do show you how to use it. So if my instruction isn't quite floating your boat, you can always check theirs out. So the way this works, guys, is back off your adjuster almost all the way, or not quite. Make sure that you've installed the little bearing system on the end, along with that little 8mm head, bolt head. That just so when you turn it, it doesn't grind into the jack shaft, and it'll actually kind of spin and make it a little bit easier for you to work with. And then take two of your shorter bolts here, like so, with the two holes that are threaded in there that don't hold in the bolts that hold in the drive plate, the one above and below on an angle of the jack shaft. You want to thread these bolts in as far as they'll go for you. Basically, we're bottoming them out. Okay, and then now that's done, we got a little bit of play here. Just tighten it up your adjuster, and then with the appropriate socket, in theory, we should just be able to crank on that clockwise, and it should start pulling the drive plate off. Here we go. There's gonna be a lot of cracking, a lot of popping going on. It's okay. And like so, the drive plate is off and nothing's damaged. All is good in the world. So we'll take our puller off. So let's take this off, take the carriage bolt out, and just tilt it back and pull it out. Okay, now we're just having a look at the bearing. Okay, so got a paper towel in here. Clean off the inside. How do you know if the bearing's bad or not? Well, first off, if you hear a racket, it's making a lot of noise, it's a good chance that the bearing's gone. A visual inspection is always good. So talking about a visual inspection, I'm looking at the black seal on the outside. There's also another one on the other side. These are supposed to be waterproof bearings, right? So if snow and stuff gets in there, it doesn't rust out the bearings. They're already pre-lubricated. So, and then I'll stick my thumb in there, and I'll rotate it, and I'll listen and I'll feel if there's a grinding sound or a grinding feel. Ah, it's perfect. It's good. Then that's pretty. If there is none of that, you're good to go. If there's some of that, you're not so good to go. Obviously abnormal wear and play, but if you were to be able to get play out of the center of this bearing, chances are it's making a lot of noise. It's really hard to spin. So super smooth rotation and no grinding or any type of chunk feel to it. So we're good to go. That bearing should be fine. If you were to replace the bearing, it is kind of pressed in there, guys. So again, you could probably put it in a vise with some sockets and press it out, but you'll need to remove the circlip that's in there. Again, you just need some circlip tools, but that's not for this video. And there's tons of videos out there where you can find out how to pull a bearing from something. Okay, so what we're left with now, guys, here is the jack shaft kind of sitting, you know, just hanging there in the carbon fiber tunnel. Yeah, there's quite a bit of play on that sprocket. Again, like in our other video when we were talking, where this sprocket on the jack shaft is, it shouldn't have any play, and it's going knock, 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 knock. So it is a wear point. I mean, I have three Yetis now, 16, 20, and a 22, and they all kind of do that. So, but it's a wear point. So, you know, it's like the sprockets on your dirt bike with your chain. It's just going to wear out. Okay, so we have found a problem. We found our first problem. Theoretically, which I'm pretty sure I got this right, when we've got the nut here on the inside holding the jack shaft in place, okay, and then the chain's off it, so there's no kind of nothing binding anything or holding anything together. We got the chain off. That in here, in theory, should rotate quite easily, like with no effort. I'm having a hard time rotating that. Like, really hard time. So, and that should not sound like that. So we have a problem. Now, it could be a couple different things. Without a flashlight, I'm not going to be able to see. But we could have a bad bearing. Maybe a clip is fallen off, but it kind of feels like a bearing. You can hear all that rattling. Hear that ringing noise? Yeah, that's how loose that sprocket is on the jack shaft. So that doesn't help at all. I think the bearing's shot. So we still need to hold it in place to get the bolt off. Okay, so after a bit of messing around here, I have been able to kind of figure out how to do this and start to break it loose. So I definitely needed to get myself a longer breaker bar, and then putting the one of the belt sprockets back onto my Motion Pro clutch basket holder. I took the Motion Pro and I put it about there so I can get a good hand on it. Being careful that when I start tight or loosening the other side, I'm not like pinching my hand in the system here. And then getting this in a good angle off the back bolt. And then doing my best to hold on to this thing. Yeti t-shirt, give me strength. Okay, and then where we go, guys. So that's loose to the point now where I can definitely put it on my other ratchet and get that bolt out. You can tell it's a Loctite. You know how that you get that feel, like it's tight the whole way out. That's Loctite. Now, because I think I've discovered that this bearing is shot, I could have probably thrown some heat on it, and I might have not done it without the breaker bar. But I like to pretend the bearing is actually in good shape. And again, if I were to apply heat to it, it probably would have warped the outer seal and caused it to leak, get moisture in there, rust out, and bad things happen. Okay, so we're out. Okay, so now we get that off. Let's pull this back down. We're now going to take our puller / pusher and get it into place here so we can push that jack shaft out of that bearing. Okay, so now that I got that in there, I'm basically just making it so it's, you know, that the removal plate is pretty even. You know, it's not crooked or anything. It's in there nice. Then I'm going to tighten this down. And then with a 16mm wrench, I'm going to push that shaft out. Again, there's going to be a lot of cracking noises. It's all good. At least the cracking noises that you're hearing in this video. And you'll know you have it out when the jack shaft just falls out the other side. Okay, I heard it drop. We can remove our system here. Okay, so instead of, yeah, look at that, eh? All right, let's stand this back up. So instead of just pushing the bearing out, or sorry, the shaft off the bearing, it pushed the bearing out of the holder. And it's quite clear that with the rotation of this bearing, it is totally and utterly done for. So the next thing we have to do is we got to focus on getting this bearing off, and then taking this apart if we want to is fine. But I need the circlips that are in here. There's these tiny little circlips right there that holds this gear in place. I need those clips. So in order to get those clips, I got to take the bearing off. Yeah, in order to get the bearing off, it's pretty simple. With your Yeti bearing puller kit, you've got this little piece, and it's pretty easy. You're just going to put this piece underneath the bearing like so. Okay, and then the other piece on top. Now this is where you're going to need the long bolts. So these short brass bolts won't cut it. You get the 2 long bolts that came with the kit. Put them through like so. Thread them into the base. I'm going to go with all the way until they start popping out the bottom, or flush with the bottom, like so. Okay, and then it's a simple, actually I'm going to go further. You can't go too far because it just hits the sprocket. And then this has to get cranked up all the way. And once that's snug, now all I got to do is tighten this and it'll pull it off. I should be able to do it just by holding on to it. So let's give it a whirl. Here we go. Oh yeah, that works really good. Look at that. Do, 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 do. Oh, I've run out. Okay, so I've just run out of shaft here, so I just got to do a quick reset. So just back that off. Tighten up your 2 bolts on either side again. As far as she goes. And the bearing's off. Easy peasy. Okay, smart tools from Yeti. Yeah, now I can really feel it. So it's totally like, you know, grinding. So that bearing's shot. So we got to put a new bearing on. Let's get the sprocket off next. Okay, here we go. Just got these brand new. Can't wait to try them. My other ones were bending. Oh, how good does that work? Yes. Okay, and then sprocket off. So yeah, there's another retaining clip on the inside of that stops it. You're going to want to take that one off as well. Inspect them, guys, but they shouldn't be damaged. Yeah, it's straight. It's good. No problems. And now this sprocket and this shaft is pretty much kaput. All right, so now we've got our new jack shaft with our new sprocket. This is the second one I've gotten. The first one, I was actually able to marry up the sprocket quite nice, and it had pressure to slide on, but not as much as this one's giving me. I'm not sure why, but I do know that the tolerances are super tight, and that you know, it's going to take a little bit of effort to put it on. So, but you need to keep it dry, because in the YetiSnowMX manual, they say that you need to apply some sleeve retainer compound. Now they put a Loctite number in on their parts fiche, parts diagram manual. But if you watch our other jack shaft video, we explain that this is the equivalent. So if you can't find the Loctite, whatever number that one is, it'll show in the manual. This Permatex right here sleeve retainer, PX64050. I'll do the trick. So before we apply that, we gotta take our circlip and put it on the first ring. Now the old YetiSnowMX video, if you're watching online, they say there's multiple grooves. It doesn't look like that's it anymore. There's two of them. One goes on the bottom, one goes on the top. Make sure that it seats in the ring. You know that it's in there because it'll spin smoothly in the channel that it's meant for it. So now we gotta get this on. So it's the first time I've come across trying to put a sprocket on where it's been difficult. So I think I'm just gonna try to get as level as possible. So the way I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna put a big socket on the top while I hold this down in the vise with some soft jaws and tap on it evenly to try to get to go down even, instead of hitting one side, hitting the other, and rocking it. I think what that'll do is just going to wear out the splines prematurely. Just before I get it into place, I'll apply this sleeve retainer to the inside. In this case, because it's so tight, I'm going to soak it, really get it in there. Okay, so I've got the blue, I've got the sleeve retainer in there, it's dripping. I'm going to let it try to flow down through the channels a bit, see it pooling. Get it in there. I'm going to add a little bit to the top. See if I can get it to start seeping its way down. I'm not quite in all the way, far enough, but I'm damn close. And I want to make sure this stuff's in here. So I'll use a little bit too much because I'm never going to use it for anything else. and then I'll be sure that it's in there and it's working the way it should. Okay, so we're looking good. Now I know I'm in place because I can see that the gear is perfectly married up at the bottom of the circlip. So now all I should have to do is get this other circlip in place, or the circlip, get it back in there, push it down until it clicks into place, and I can feel that one spin on there nicely. Ever so evenly. And now, zero play, nice and tight, ready to get put back on the machine. Okay, so for the units that require the alignment, don't quote me on this, but I got a feeling it's 2018 and up. Maybe some 17s later production, but I think it's 18 and up. Where when you have the floating bearing system or the alignment carrier, I'll show you this to you guys. Let's see if I can get this. Okay, so this housing here for the bearing, in older units there was a sleeve at the back that would stop the bearing from pulling through. So when I push this through to release the jack shaft, obviously the bearing came with it. So because I can't find any videos online that reference that, I'm going to assume that I need to install my bearing on this shaft first, bottoming out on this lip, and that's exactly how it's supposed to sit. This definitely seems like it's the perfect diameter, not diameter, the length of it to fit inside of the replacement bearing. So yeah, we're going to find a bearing in the kit that's new or good. And if I was spending a lot of time doing this, I would try to make the job a bit easier by putting the bearing in a warm place. Not too warm, but like, I don't know, somewhere warm, nice and warm. And put this in the freezer. The freezer will cause this to contract, get a little bit smaller. And then the heat will help this expand a bit. And I'm not going to say it's going to drop on, but it makes it a little bit easier so you don't have to apply so much pressure to the inner side of the bearing. We don't have time for that. We're making a video. We're going to just apply the pressure. Let's go. Let's get this bearing on the shaft. Now, there's a couple different ways you can do this. My vise is long enough where I can put both ends of these in, and the vise can squeeze, and it'll move this bearing here over and fill that gap in. If you don't have a vise that's that big, then what you can do is you can put it on a table like so on this flat end, maybe a block of wood on the top, and just start knocking this down. And with the levelness of the table and a piece enough, good enough piece of wood and a nice swing, right? It's going to tap, 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 and push that bearing up into place. So before I put this on, you don't have to do this, guys, but I like doing it because I think it's good practice. I bought a little bit of this Klotz assembly lube that I've had for a while now. I'm going to put a tiny little bit of it on the inside of the bearing and around the shaft here. It's just going to allow it to slide down and find home base a little bit easier than just, you know, metal on metal. All right. So it's lubed up nicely. And in the vise it goes. And in theory, as long as everything's straight, that vise should just push that in nicely. Yeah, that's what I want to feel. I'm just going to bottom the bearing out a bit. And now the bearing is installed and in place. So I'm taking it and I'm putting it all the way to the edge of those splines so it can't go any further. Not squeezing too hard. So let's head back in. So now that we have that in there, I'm going to wipe off the excess oil and we're going to kind of get it back into place. Okay, so now before we put it back into place, which is basically inside of that bearing carrier, I'm going to try to clean up some of that dirty rust that's in there. And before I try to put it in, I will need to put in both these bolts back. There will be some tapping going on to try to get this to go into place. So I want this securely mounted against the tunnel. Once the bearing's in place, we'll take this off and then we'll put in our shims and take care of the alignment process. All right, let's get this cleaned up. I'm going to try a brake cleaner and a little bit of emery cloth. You don't want to score this. Like I'm talking like really soft stuff. Hopefully just my toothbrush, but if that doesn't do it, it might take a little bit more. I've just taken a little bit of basically wet sandpaper. Like it's the stuff you're supposed to wet when you're doing that final clear coat on your car and stuff, or whatever you're finishing off. It's extremely not abrasive. It probably won't even cut into the aluminum. It's just enough that it's taking off some of the surface rust. It's not taking off any metal. It's just cleaning it up so that the bearing will slide in nicely and seat evenly. Now this bearing doesn't need to be pressed into this hole. This hole is just machined enough that I can almost get the bearing in with my fingers. But it stops about halfway through and there's too much friction. But when you put the jack shaft on, you start, you know, pushing it or hammering it through, it will seat nicely. The trick is not to go too far. You want it so the bearing marries up perfectly in this casing. We're just going to take the manual to find out if the bolts that hold this, let's call it the bearing carrier in place, need Loctite or not. All right, so just finding the correct page. Okay. Yes, it definitely wants Loctite on those 4 bolts. And again, there's that symbol for that that Permatex stuff that I was using. In this case, you know, I'm pretty sure this tells you on the top what Loctite it is. Apply Loctite 648 to splines. So I just used the other stuff. So yeah, blue Loctite to number 17. So I'll do that. So I'm going to clean the threads off and get them all good to go so that the Loctite can do its job, because these threads have a bunch of gunk in them still from the old Loctite. Okay, so sorry I didn't show that on film. Well, I kind of did. It went in quite nicely. There was no effort at all. I just pushed it in, and that bearing fell right into place, and all is good in the world. So let's talk about what we have to do now before we mount this plate in there. I wish I could get a better angle of that. You know, that floating bearing works, right? But this whole plate moves up and down, and this is what's going to help us align it. So once we get these, before I put the bolts back in, there are a set of very small wedges. Excuse the dirty hands there, guys. like so. There's wedge number 1, and then there's another one's identical. And each one of them fits in a side here, like so. Okay, in behind, right? They fit in behind. And these slots here will eventually help us set these into place. So I got to just refer to the instruction manual again to make sure I get this right. And I'll tell you guys on video how it's done in a second. Okay, so you're going to need to have on hand the tool that they call the, where are you? The belt alignment jig. So we'll click on that. And it's this huge piece of machined, I think it's aluminum, that you use to align the belt, align the jack shaft, and it shows you this illustrations here, as you can see, of how the pins go in and how they work and how it lines everything up. So I'm just going to have a look over this, and then I'm going to spell it all out for you cats. Okay, we're getting close to doing the alignment procedure. Let's show you what the alignment tool looks like. This thing. Yeah, but it's made to perfection. It's made by YetiSnowMX, and as you'll see in the steps, I'm going to explain how to use this. This will align your 2 drive belts on the. It's like picture a drive belt here. You can kind of see the sprocket, one here, one down here. You mount this on. There's a bunch of different steps, and it'll move that top jack shaft up and down where it needs to be in order for it to align perfectly. And then those said wedges that I was showing you earlier on, the purpose of these is while you move that plate around inside the carrier. So as this moves around here, up and down sideways, as it finds home, the wedges will slowly kind of drop and slip and fall into place on either side. Doot, 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 and then it will find its perfect alignment spot, and then you tighten everything up and you're good to go. Now, you do not want to add any lubrication at all to this. Any lubrication will cause these to stick. You want it totally bone dry in there with no lube so that this aluminum can slip up and down easily into place. If you were to have any type of dirt and aluminum in there, you could definitely use these little pin holes in the top to put like a poker to help push it down once the whole thing's aligned and jigged. But I'm going to leave it not lubricated and allow them to be able to slip and slide inside as easily as possible so that there's no the oil doesn't hang it up against the side of the wall and it doesn't fall down into place or slip into place. So this is where it gets a little tricky, trying to get everything lined into place. We're going to get the 4 bolts started in here, and we'll be right back with a camera shot. There's a backing plate in there. Don't forget this. So that goes up against the back inside the tunnel, right in here. So it goes all the way in there. And that's what the screws hold on to, these little aluminum sections. I know some units might have a different look to them, but this one here, that's slightly tweaked. It's not ideal. Should be okay. So I'm just starting the bolts a little bit, just so a few threads are holding on until I get them all 4 in place. Okay, now that I got some tension, just a bit of tension on those bolts in the plate there. Okay, here. I'm actually going to lay it on its side, and I'm going to take a little poker and try to move those sliders up inside and put them up a little bit higher so that they can do their job with the alignment jig. This has become one of my best tools I have in my box. And then, yeah, let's see if you guys can see this. And take these, slide that one up into place. That one, slide that up into place. I hope you guys could see that, what I did there. So these go up and down, right? The wedges, they help it find a home. should have done that. There. Okay, I'm going to start them with in the top position. Yeah, I'm going to start them in the top position. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to snug this down to hold those in place until I get my jack shaft in there. And then we'll loosen and then put the alignment jig on there. So that way it holds those little pins in place while I move the kit around. Well, I guess with it tight in there, it's definitely closed up the gap a bit. Oh, no, there we go. Okay, perfect. Never mind, didn't say a word. Okay. I'm going to take my bolt and I'm going to secure it to the back of my unit. Of course, with the Loctite that it recommends. Yes, Loctite at 61 Newton meters, that's pretty tight. We'll torque it up after, but we'll get the Loctite in there. Okay, and then in order to get it to 61 Newton meters, I can probably do that with the alignment jig. Yeah, we'll wait till we get the alignment jig in place. Okay, since we took the chain off, now is a great time to reinstall the chain while this drive plate's off. It'll be so much easier than trying to do it afterwards. It's such a pain in the ass to get these chains on sometimes. So we'll just feed it on now and life will be so much better. That's how it was supposed to spin in the first place. Okay, so now the chain's back on and we got it, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfectly in place, guys, but as long as it's around the sprocket, again, it's going to make things really nice for you when it comes to mounting it on the bike. So the next step is we're going to need to put back on our drive plate and get it all torqued up into place before we move on. And that's going to require a little bit of bearing pulling or installing again. So don't forget to put your tensioner back in before you put your drive plate back on the bike, because you can't do it when it's on there. Okay, so here's another tool from Yeti. This tool helps you repress the bearings or re-put the bearings back on the shafts. So again, it's a collar, big long bolt, washer, and another bolt. Available from Yeti, guys. It's called the tool shaft install tool assembly, and you guys can find it on the Yeti's webpage under their tool page. So in order to get this pulled back through, basically the way that this tool works is we put the nut first on the bolt, like so. Okay, then the washer, then the collar, like so. Okay. And then on here, the drive plate's just resting there without any bolts in place. We're going to thread that in. And then basically when we tighten the nut and hold the outside bolt from rotating, it's going to pull the whole thing together through the bearing. Like so. We're just going to hold this side while we tighten it in. So I'm just going to loosen it to show you the progress so far. Now as you can see, it's starting to pull it through the spline. So it's doing it nice and evenly. And just so you know, that bearing will eventually, bottom out on this side of the shaft, up against there. Okay. Okay, so it's gotten tight. It's definitely bottomed out. And the way that you can double check that it is sitting in the right spot is if you take your belt sprocket here along with your washer that goes behind it. Don't forget that. And then put the drive gear on. It should be perfectly flat and flush with the gear, so that there isn't any sticking out and it's not recessed in. Again, this is that fine machining that I was talking about in all my videos about YetiSnowMX. Really great stuff. You put it together properly, everything works properly. Okay, so now that that's done, we can install our drive plate back into place. And the drive plate screws are going to be 25 Newton meters. I'm going to stagger them. And now it is time for the alignment process. All right, let's say you guys just joined the video, you skipped ahead now, we're talking about the alignment process. Step number one, you're going to need to take off your top and bottom bolts that hold your belt drive sprockets on. So because we were doing the steps before, this one's already loose. We talked about how to remove them, but for the bottom, we're going to do the same. We're going to use the Motion Pro clutch basket clamps to hold this in place, so I can put a ratchet on it. That won't move now, and I can loosen that off. If the bolt doesn't loosen, use, because of the Loctites in there, use a little bit of heat from a heat gun and just circle it, get it warmed up. That'll loosen the Loctite and help it release. Okay, before I take that out, I'm just going to run it in and out a few times with the drill, just to break up the Loctite that's in there and turn it to dust, and it's easier to clean afterwards. You can see it flying out. Yeah, just bring this around so you can see. Yeah, it's all Loctite, right? So again, if that didn't come out by hand, it's probably because the Loctite was too, maybe someone used, instead of blue, they used red, and you'd have to heat it up. So anyways, that's off. Okay. If you have an impact gun, you can use that as well, but I kind of wanted to do this video without using any major power tools, like impact guns. Okay, so those are off, and next step is we're going to loosen the 4 bolts on the back of the jack shaft plate. These right here. They just need to be loose. That system in there needs to float around. Okay, so there we go. All's good in the world. Now, next up with your alignment tool is with the 2 big bolts that it came with and the side that says alignment on it. So you got one side that says inspection, and then the other side you have alignment. You want to take the alignment side. These drive sprockets need to be in place. Sorry guys. Just put them back on. Okay. We basically need to bolt it into place like so. So let's get that in there. With the alignment side out, and you thread it into your jack shaft and your drive shaft with the sprockets on and in place. Okay, then we're going to tighten these bolts down into place at 61 Newton meters, which is 45 foot-pounds of torque. Okay, so we're at 45 foot-pounds of torque on both of those. Okay, so before we go on with the next step of the alignment procedure, we want to make sure that back bolt that's on the jack shaft right over here is torqued up because it hasn't been tightened yet along this process. So it wants to be 61 Newton meters or 45 foot-pounds of torque. So here we go. Okay, so that's good. Now moving on. The next step now is to take our little poker And we're going to go to the back of that jack shaft plate. And those little pins, is this, oh, that'll work, yeah. Okay, they just need to be now pushed down into place ever so gently. If that's not moving freely, the plate's too tight. So we're going to loosen the 4 bolts a bit more. There we go. So it says to take these and push them down slightly so that without applying much force, so they just fall into place. So that's looking good on that side. There we go. Oh, there we go. Get a bit more going on there. Not a lot of force, just a little bit. Should have cleaned that up a bit more in there, but we'll get her. Okay, so they're in place. Next step is now tighten all 4 of these bolts up to torque spec, which is 25 Newton meters, which is 18 foot-pounds. Okay, they're all torqued down. The next step is to take a small punch, okay, and punch down the wedges for their final resting position. So you're not hammering the daylights out of them, just some. And if they move, great. If they don't, that's okay too. So let's find a small punch. You can probably use a tiny screwdriver, but you probably might do damage to it. You want a flat end punch, not a, not like a, you know, a pin that you would use for making a pilot hole. That's good. Okay, now we're in place. Okay, next step is we're going to take the plate off because we're going to have to turn it around for the next part of the alignment. And this is like the confirmation inspection section of it, where you're confirming that everything was perfect. Okay, and the next step, we need to just install the top synchro drive, belt drive sprocket. So it needs to have, this is the last time you're putting this in, guys, hopefully. And so you can Loctite it up now. Some blue Loctite. Make sure the bolt's evenly coated, and this is important that this gets done right. There's a lot of spinning and force on this, and without it Loctited, it's very easily to come loose on you and cause problems. And then once it's in place, you want to lock that down to 61 Newton meters or 45 foot-pounds torque. Now, you're not going to be able to get this torque down into place, guys, without holding it in place. I have tried doing this by holding the brake on and trying to hold the track and all the rest of that jazz. I was not successful with it. There we go. Easy peasy with the right tools. Just gonna wipe off that Loctite that dripped down. Okay, now we take our alignment jig, and with the side saying inspection on it, face out. And we only use one of the bolts to put it into the bottom synchro drive gear. Just get it started for now. Okay, we want to torque this down now to the exact same torque specs as before, which is, might have to hold it in place. Okay, there we go. Try not to pinch your fingers, and then rotate this so that is basically in line with the top synchro drive sprocket. or belt drive gear. And then you want to align the spokes so that, there's like, here, we'll look at gear so we can talk about it. So you want to basically align this sprocket here, guys. We'll just zoom in so that the holes in this sprocket do not line up with the holes in the adjustment plate. You want to have them line up so that the holes hit the actual, like, the centerpiece here, because we're going to use a tool to measure from through the hole into the side of this gear. So not the hole, but in the side of the gear. I hope that makes sense. And just rotate it. You may want to stick, you can probably stick something in there. Yeah, that's not right. Okay, that's good. Now, this next step is a step that you're going to need a specially tooled, now not your average backyard mechanic or guy might have, is a vernier caliper. So this unit right here is used for measuring distances and tight tolerances. So, you know, this is a digital one that when I open it up, it changes a number. Maybe just go like that. Wait a minute. Yeah. And as I go bigger, it gives me a bigger distance. And I can put this in metric or in imperial or whatever, standard, whatever you want to call it. In other words, we need to use this, and it's actually this end right here that pokes out when I open this up is what we're going to use. Okay, so we've got different holes here, okay? So for the video, hopefully I can make this work. The bottom is hole A, and then hole B, hole C, and hole D, okay? First thing we need to do is measure the distance between the back of the sprocket that's in behind here, okay, to the front of the inspection plate using a vernier caliper, okay, this guy here. Take the vernier caliper, okay, and you put it in until it bottoms out, and then you set it against the plate, and then hit the 0 meter so that it reads 0 and lock it down. So that depth there is now set to 0, whatever that might be. Then you go ahead to hole B, this one up here, and measure the difference between the distances in hole A and hole B. So in order to do that, I'm going to unlock it, and then I'm going to put it in and find out what that distance is. Okay, so we're doing really good. We're 0.08. So is that in spec? Based on Yeti's recommendations, A and B should be no further apart than 0.25 millimeters. So 0.08, I am well in spec. That's awesome. Now we're going to check C and D. Those tolerances are tighter. Those ones need to be in between 0.13 millimeters. So I'm going to check that now, doing the exact same procedure. So step 1 off to the side, right? I'm going to 0 it out. And now measure the other side. And I'm 0.05. Looking good. We're in line. So the procedure worked, and that jack shaft is all aligned. And now to finish off the process, we just remove our alignment tool. Like so. We Loctite our bottom synchro drive gear or belt drive gear bolt. We'll apply some Loctite to it. Make sure we get it all the way around. Trying to let it drip too much. Loctite's not cheap. In we go to the bottom. I'll just make time a little bit quicker by driving it in with this. And back to the Motion Pro gear holder. We'll just put that in there. Clamp that down to hold it in place. 45 foot-pounds of torque, or 61 Newton meters. And there we go. That's torqued up. So the next step is putting the belt back on. We're going to give this a quick little wipe inside there. Some cleaner. So when you're inspecting the inside of this, guys, really what you're looking for is shavings of belt, rubber, or sometimes you get these silver metallic shavings, especially if your gears aren't aligned. And that's why they did that update. So on the older models, guys, you want to be mindful of that. I'm just cleaning some old Loctite that came out of the channel here, but this is looking really good. Super clean. I like that. And then we put our belt back on. So step number one is we'll just place our wheel tightener back in and just loosely put that on. Move this shaft back and forth. And as soon as this bolt gets tight, that won't shift back and forth anymore. A bit. So that's free and clear. We take our belt, and since we inspected our belt, it's looking good. No problems with it. We can put it back on. Use her another day. If you have a fresh belt, beginning of the season, throw her on. Use your old belt as a spare in case you have a problem. Okay, making sure that all the belt's lined in with the spokes and it's even. It's not sitting back too far. You know, that looks good. That looks good. Okay, and now we'll tighten up our set bolt here. Like so with a wrench. I'll pull that wheel this way. It'll tighten the belt, and then I'll show you the adjustment procedure in a second. So if you push on the wheel here, that'll definitely help you do this by hand until you get to the point where it's too tight and you have to use a wrench. The whole time just checking your belt positioning, making sure it's good. It will find home. If it's slightly off and you get it going, it will eventually center itself. Okay, so now our belt's getting a little tight. So you've got this little red slidey thingy, okay, which is like an adjustment thing. So what you want to do is you want to take that and push it so it's just at the back of the belt. So that's a little too far. I'll just use this and put it forwards, like so. Now when I take the belt and push it, if I go past it or too far, it's not adjusted right. So that is a little loose. So we're just going to tighten up the belt a bit more. Let's try that. Maybe a couple more. Recenter it. Yeah, that's good. So it's in the speck of that red line, and all is good in the world. We're going to tighten the locking nut at the back, just so it doesn't vibrate out on us, which is always good to have. And then, remembering to leave a little bit of play, okay, because when you tighten up the bolt on your adjustment wheel, your tension wheel, it will make the belt a tiny bit tighter when you square it up. And then tighten that down to spec, which in this case is 35 foot-pounds. Okay, there we go. Reinstall your Synchro Drive by C3 Power Sports cover. And that job is complete. All right. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Hope this gave you a little bit more in-depth on how to do this job. It is important. You do want to make sure that jack shaft isn't getting loose on you, and you want to make sure it's in line perfectly, and you want to make sure that your sprocket and jack shaft has virtually no play. A little bit of play, not bad, but when it goes clank, 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 not good, not good. Anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching.